Welcome back to the Daily Dope Show. Um, just remember that this is not a news show. This is just my opinion show. I'm not a news person. I'm just a commentary person. Although I do things that are it's pretty cool sometimes, like interview people or whatever. And I was invited to go to this gubernatorial candidate weigh-in at Legalization Forum by my Legalize, and I just couldn't make it. And this happens a lot. There's a lot of times when I just can't make it to certain things or whatever. And in this case, I just could not get a ride or whatever it took. Uh, so anyway, um, the headline, and I can only find one article about it. Pretty sad. A bunch of people on my friends list might have even went to it. I don't know. But anyway, more Michigan governor candidates back pot legalization. I'm going to see some pictures here. Gretchen Whitmer is one of these candidates. We'll just go through here. Here's candidate Abdul Al Sayed. And then gubernatorial candidate Gretchen Whitmer left talks with a table of people next to fellow candidate Shri Thanadar right here. And then we have, there's like a crowd shot. And nope, I'm not in the crowd, unfortunately. I wish I could have been there. From left, we have Shri Thanadar. I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'm going to guess. And then we have Bill Cobbs here. Out of all these people, I think Bill Cobbs, as far as I know, he's had his hat in the longest, maybe. Over here we have Abdul Al Sayed and Gretchen Whitmer again. There's Gretchen one more time talking. Here's Bill Cobbs, former Detroit police officer, talking at the forum. And again, Shri Thanadar. And then Evan Space, who is actually a Republican, who also is for legalizing marijuana. Bill Cobbs, Detroit police officer, former. Abdul Al Sayed, Gretchen Whitmer, Shri Thanadar, and on with the article. Of course, my my highlights. There we go. Gotta have my highlights. Don't really matter. I'm gonna read the whole fucking thing. So anyway. So 4 leading Democrats and 1 little-known Republican running for Michigan governor are throwing their support behind marijuana legalization ahead of a potential statewide proposal that could share the ballot with them in 2018. Quote, "We've seen other states do it wrong. In Michigan, we've got a chance to do it right," said former state Senate Minority Leader Gretchen Whitmer on Tuesday night in a candidate forum hosted by MI Legalize. The activist-led group is a member of and top donor to the Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, a ballot committee preparing to submit petition signatures for a proposal that would regulate and tax commercial marijuana production and retail sales in Michigan. Abdul Al Sayed, a medical doctor and former Detroit Health Department director, said he has seen firsthand the efficacy of medical marijuana to treat seizures and believes full legalization would open the door to more rigorous research on its effects. Quote, "This has become a civil rights issue," Al Sayed said, pointing to statistics showing criminal enforcement has had a disproportionate impact on low-income communities and African Americans. Quote, "We have an opportunity here in Michigan to rethink marijuana." Evan Space, a long-shot Republican from Lansing and a military veteran, said he wants to provide better access to veterans suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Shri Thanadar, an Ann Arbor Democrat and scientist, said science supports legalization. That is very true. Bill Cobbs, a former Detroit police officer, said prohibition has been a failure. quote, most cops don't want to arrest people for marijuana because we understand what it does to somebody's life when we give them a criminal record this insignificant, cops said. My Legalized leader, Jeff Hank, said, forum participation by 5 gubernatorial candidates is evidence of a culture change we're undergoing here in Michigan, and told activists the event made him emotional. Democrats in particular are increasingly embracing full legalization. The party's nominee for governor in 2014, Mark Schauer, took a wait-and-see approach to legalization, saying he wanted to see results of the grand experiment in Colorado and Washington state, but would not take lead on that issue in Michigan. And that, my friend, is why you fucking lost. All right? As soon as you take an issue that is as popular as legalizing marijuana to the voters as your issue that you're championing, you get support. Did you think it was going to net you a net minus in support? You're running on the Democratic ticket in a supposedly blue state. It used to be a blue state. More by and large, man, I think Michigan is as red as the fucking red states of the South anymore, man. If you just look at the law, we're doing all kinds of dumb shit here. I mean, we got the same laws as they got in Mississippi, damn near. Anyway, so yeah, the party's nominee, Schauer, he was just a sham. Anyway, Attorney General Bill Schuette, the early favorite for the 2018 GOP gubernatorial nomination, led the campaign against Michigan's medical marijuana law in 2008, but has distanced himself from the more recent legalization debate. And he's also kind of distanced himself from really anything to do with medical marijuana anymore, now that all of his friends are in Lansing fucking taking the motherfucker over. Schuette has said he is concerned legalization could increase youth access to marijuana, but has repeatedly called it an issue that voters should decide. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we've heard basically every kind of reefer madness you can throw out there has been thrown out there by Bill Schuette. And one of my favorites is after Michigan legalized medical marijuana, he told the cops in Michigan, you know, if you pull somebody over, you could get in trouble if you don't confiscate their medical marijuana. I don't care if they got a card. I don't care if they have that shit stored in a fucking lockbox in the trunk. If you pull somebody over and you don't take their weed, you're breaking the federal law. And therefore, you have to take their weed. That's the kind of shit Bill Schuette's fucking famous for. That's just one example, but that's my favorite, one of his crazy-ass examples. Political candidates are taking note of public opinion polling showing growing support for marijuana legalization in Michigan, said My Legalize political organizer Sam Pernick, predicting the 2018 ballot measure could encourage first-time or rare voters to go to the polls. Quote, Republicans who were sternly opposed are now neutral, and Democrats who were neutral are now strongly supportive, he said. Quote, we do have many Republicans with a more libertarian bent who are supportive too. Maybe. I mean, I consider myself more of a libertarian than a Democrat when it comes to the issue of the drug war in general. But I do see where the prohibition and the arrests behind, since we've legalized medical marijuana, arrests have went up any number between 16 to 20% in Michigan. Increase in marijuana arrests since legalizing medical marijuana. So a lot of libertarian bent, I guess you might call them libertarian minded, or I can really consider myself kind of a progressive because I'm more on the left for most other issues besides marijuana. But when it comes to the drug war, I don't know where I'm at really. I mean, I'm basically for an open system where marijuana exists legally and there's no limits to a lot of the things that, quite frankly, legalization puts limitations on. One of them being plants, the amount of plants a person can grow. The amount of possession of something that somebody can, what's this arbitrary worry about how much of something somebody's possessing? Nobody cares how many guns somebody owns. You could have 1,000 guns in a fucking basement, you know, and a couple of guns out back, big ones. I seen this thing of the guy with the most guns, the guy who owns the most guns, like 4,000 guns or some shit. He's got like flamethrowers and machine guns and all this shit. I mean, what about alcohol? Alcohol can be lethal, right? Well, there's nothing that says you can't have a fuckload of alcohol. When it comes to pills, that's where it gets tricky. Like, if you look at scheduling on medicine, there's a reason for that. It's because you shouldn't be able to have more than like 90 pills that are addictive and can give you a buzz if you take two of them and basically have a street value and shit. If you give somebody more than that, they're just going to sell them or give them away to people that don't have a prescription. We know these things because it's just like the economy's so bad that that's like people sell the fucking pills that they have to take. So of course, if you give them too many, they're going to sell them. But we have certain limits on certain things, not to control people's. It's not like if you give somebody the ability to have more pills than 90 a month or whatever, that they're going to go ahead and take like 5 extra a day or something like that. It doesn't. We're not worried about that, and I can see where they're not worried about many other things except for money. Like if you let too many people grow too many plants, then the rich people that want to get rich off the whole thing aren't going to be able to make their money selling it. And people out there are just going to sell weed willy-nilly and have, extra money to spend all the time. Boo-hoo. That's what the government don't like. That's why you can't like run a still. That's why you can only brew so much beer a year. But the limits that I'm seeing in these legalization rollouts are fucking laughable. Now, when it comes to my Legalize with the 12 plant personal grow, we'll see how that works out because there's still an opportunity for that to get reworded into like 6 plants that are this big and 6 plants that are that big or something. I don't know. Well, anyway, that's another thing is they consider a fucking plant as a rooted clone. So there's just a lot of things I don't like about legalization and limits. So we'll leave that at that. Pernick said forum organizers tried to identify candidates supporting legalization, but also invited Schuette to the event. While he did not respond, Schuette was repeatedly mentioned, with Whitmer of East Lansing arguing that Attorney General has, quote, thrown up barrier after barrier between medical marijuana patients and their medicine. And that's true. This is an opportunity to go a step further and say, here in Michigan, we're going to embrace the legalization, but we're also going to grow our economy, Whitmer said. We're going to create real clear rules so that we can do this so that we don't leave patients, we don't leave small business owners to fend for themselves. Thanader, a businessman who has largely self-funded his campaign, argued that Michigan's next governor needs to make sure, quote, big business doesn't hijack the prospective legal marijuana industry. Quote, we've got to make sure we support the small businesses, we support the entrepreneurs, and we fight any kind of attempt by the federal government to take away people's rights. While marijuana remains illegal at the federal level, voters in 8 states have approved recreational use laws. Colorado was the first state to implement legalization, with retail sales beginning in 2014. Maine Republican Governor Paul LePage this month vetoed legislation to regulate and tax the drug, despite voters last year approving a legalization measure. So, yeah, he just shot his own feet there because basically all he did is make it so every sale is done in the dark so that they can't get no fucking money out of it. How is that helpful? How is it helpful to keep cannabis sales in the dark? Is it helping you, LePage? How you feeling about that? I mean, he already had it pushed back to like July or some shit, and we're gonna probably see it. We'll be lucky to see a for sale bud legally in Maine in 2018 at all. Under the potential Michigan ballot proposal, marijuana retail sales would be taxed at 10% plus sales tax, with new revenue going to K through 12 schools, road repairs, and participating cities and counties. Space noted the proposal would also legalize industrial hemp farming. Quote, let's turn it into an agricultural boom, he said. Michigan already grows corn. Why not turn our state greener and improve our environment? Michigan Democrats and Republicans will elect their primary, will elect their prime gubernatorial nominees in August. The marijuana legalization proposal could appear on the November general election if organizers submit enough signatures and the measure survives any legal challenges. And then El Said says, I already know we're going to legalize. That's a done deal. What I want to talk about now is what happens next. Well, on that note, there is a little bit of an update. My Legalize is out there begging for more money because they need to pay the paid petitioners, apparently. And I mean, they were short. The last thing I seen was probably they've got the money by now. But, that when they first announced it, they said they were 70,000 short. And then at the meeting they announced that by the time the meeting was over, they were only 35,000 short. See Rick Thompson in the background there. So what do I think about this? I guess, I don't know what to say. I mean, basically you guys are going to be on the same ballot as the choice to legalize marijuana for recreational purposes. So cool. What if you got out there and was saying, yo, I'm against legalizing marijuana? You're basically going to lose the election. And that's why you don't hear a whole lot from fucking Shooty. Shooty is the biggest enemy of legalized marijuana I think we have in the state of Michigan. I mean, you got people like Don Bailey, who's pretty bad, but he's on the board to pick people's licenses to give them licenses to run legal businesses. Like it or not, his friends getting hired or not, whatever you want to say, he's part of the process of marijuana being legalized in some form. Whereas Bill Shooty is just turning a blind eye to everything that's happening because he's a hardliner and he believes in, federal overriding state when it comes to marijuana. He believes in Big Brother, and let's just say that we do not want Bill Shooty to win and be the governor of Michigan. People that are for legalizing marijuana, even though we know with a pretty good degree of certainty, like almost 100% sure, that My Legalize / the regulate marijuana like alcohol is going to be on the ballot. There's almost no doubt at all in my mind. It's going to be on the ballot, and there's almost no doubt in anybody's mind that it's going to pass overwhelmingly. One of the quotes I've heard from some people from the coalition, whether it might have even been someone from My Legalize, is that, and I know in the interviews I've had with Colin from My Legalize, he's made the point that this election is kind of an off year for Democrats generally. Midterms, I guess the lazy Gen Xers didn't go vote enough in the midterms, so they kind of like act like we're never going to do it or something. Well, now you got the situation where marijuana legalization's on the ballot. You got people that don't even care about marijuana that are going to go vote for that shit. You got people that do care about marijuana that don't even care about My Legalize right now or anything else, but they're going to go and they're going to see it there and they're going to vote yes. You got people that really don't give a shit. They just go vote like robots. And when they see the marijuana question, they're going to, Republican or Democrat, they're going to fucking check yes. That's all there is to it, man. It's going to fucking be like 80% victory. So if you're in this room here, you're not saying anything bad about marijuana. So I like what all of them had to say. Each of them had their own angle that they were coming from. You had the cop and the lawyer and all this other shit. And the scientist. So it's pretty good group we got, I think, overall. I don't see any problem with any of these candidates. I haven't really looked into them beyond this issue, but from what I've heard on this, Hey, they're all better than Shooty, including the Republican, who is a veteran for PTSD. So, I mean, there's a little bit of everything in this group. And all I got to say is if you live in Michigan, don't forget to go vote in 2018. I'm sure you won't.